Steve here. Let's talk about what happens when a government's debts get so big they can't possibly pay them back. They're left with two choices: default or change the rules of the game. Well, today, we're looking at a time they didn't just bend the rules, they shattered them. This is the story of how a nation can engineer a default by other means, and it has everything to do with the money in your pocket today.
You need to burn this into your mind. It's a fundamental truth of finance and power. Because when the numbers just don't add up anymore, the people in charge don't just throw up their hands and admit defeat. No, they rewrite the entire equation. And we're about to walk through what is maybe the most audacious example in American history.
So picture it. The year is 1933. The United States isn't just struggling, it's on its knees. We're deep in the grip of the Great Depression. Breadlines snake around city blocks, the money supply is actually shrinking, pulling the economy down into a deflationary death spiral, and the federal government, it's flat broke, out of options, or so it seemed. Now, at the very heart of the problem was the gold standard. You see, back then, every single paper dollar was effectively a claim check, an IOU for a specific physical amount of gold sitting in a vault somewhere. This meant the government couldn't just fire up the printing presses to fight the Depression. Why? Because they didn't have the gold to back it up. They were literally shackled by their own money.
And this right here, this was the lock on those shackles. The price of gold was legally fixed at $20.67 for 1 ounce. It was supposed to be an anchor of stability, but instead it became the anchor that was dragging the entire ship of state straight to the bottom.
So what do you do when you're trapped like that? Well, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt came up with a plan. He decided not to fight the trap, but to take total control of it. And his plan was as brilliant as it was ruthless. It started with a simple yet absolutely stunning command: give us your gold.
On April 5, 1933, FDR dropped Executive Order 6102. And let's be crystal clear, this was not a request, it was a demand. It suddenly became illegal for American citizens to own most forms of gold. You were ordered to take your coins, your bullion, and turn them over to the Federal Reserve at the official, non-negotiable price. And if you didn't, the penalty was a $10,000 fine, a fortune back then, and up to 10 years in federal prison.
So what happened? People complied. What choice did they have? They were forced to trade their hard, tangible wealth for paper promises from a government that was teetering on the brink. And just like that, by early 1934, the U.S. Treasury had done it. They'd cornered the market on the very asset that backed their currency. They had all of it.
But getting their hands on all the gold, well, that was just step one. That was just the setup. With every last ounce tucked safely away in government vaults, it was time for the real move. It was time for the magic trick.
Remember this number, $20.67 an ounce. That's the price the government paid the American people for their private property. Don't you forget it. Then came the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, and this new law gave the president, with all the nation's gold now in his possession, the authority to do something that was completely unprecedented. He was about to unilaterally redefine the value of the US dollar itself.
And just like that, boom, with a stroke of his pen, FDR declared that gold was now worth $35 an ounce. Overnight, the official price of the very asset the government had just finished confiscating from its citizens was jacked up by nearly 70%.
I mean, just stop and think about the sheer audacity of that. It's as if the government forced you to sell them your house for, say, 200 grand, and the very next morning they passed a law declaring that your old house was now magically worth 350 grand. That is exactly what they did to their entire gold reserve. The value on their balance sheet just exploded.
This move instantly created what they called an accounting profit of $2.8 billion. In 1934, that was an absolutely staggering sum of money. And they used this new cash to fund the massive spending of the New Deal, all without raising taxes by a single penny. They simply devalued the debt by revaluing the asset.
So, why are we dredging up a financial maneuver from nearly a century ago? Why does this matter today? Well, because of that old saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And this, my friends, is a rhyme you need to listen to very, very closely.
Because if you look around today, right now, the sovereign debt challenges we're facing are orders of magnitude bigger than anything FDR had to deal with. The numbers, once again, are starting to look unpayable.
You look at our markets today, leveraged to the hilt, propped up by mountains of debt that just keep spiraling higher and higher. You might think the old playbooks are useless against a problem of this scale. But are they really?
Let me give you a modern parallel. The 1934 revaluation.
It was basically the stablecoin swap of the analog age. Think about it. They took the core monetary asset, gold, and they just repegged the currency to it at a much weaker level. In doing so, they instantly diluted the value of every dollar and every single dollar-denominated debt in existence.
The strategy couldn't be clearer. In 1934, you devalue the nation's debt by revaluing gold. So today, as we all stare down a new, even bigger mountain of unpayable debt, the question becomes unavoidable. They changed the rules back then. What asset could they possibly revalue now?
Now listen, the crucial thing to understand is that this is not some theoretical game. This is a historical precedent. A blueprint exists for a government to reset its own balance sheet, and it's always at the direct expense of its citizens' purchasing power. They have done it once before, so the question I have to leave you with is a simple one. What happens if they do it again? This is Steve. Watch your assets, because you can be damn sure the government is.